In March 2026, four royal women walked into St. George's Hall at Windsor Castle, and between them, they carried centuries of history on their heads, around their necks, and on their wrists. One wore the tiara that Diana made iconic, paired with earrings that once belonged to the Queen Mother. One wore sapphires that began their life in a scandalous, broken marriage and ended up on the head of a queen. One wore a tiara that survived exile, war, and a family's darkest hours, passed down from a Greek princess who sheltered Jewish refugees during the Second World War. And one wore diamonds that came from Guinness money, a wedding gift from one of the wealthiest brewing families in Victorian England, given to a future queen on the day she married the man who would become King George V. This was the Nigerian state banquet, Nigeria's first state visit to Britain in 37 years. And the jewels these women chose to wear that evening were not decoration. They were a language, and every single piece had something extraordinary to say. Before we go any further, this channel is dedicated to the remarkable women behind the crowns and the jewels and the stories that shaped royalty. Hit subscribe so you never miss one. Now, let's get into it. Setting the scene. Before we get to the jewels, let's understand why this particular evening mattered so much. March 2026. King Charles III and Queen Camilla hosted Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and First Lady Oluremi Tinubu at Windsor Castle, because Buckingham Palace is currently undergoing extensive renovation scheduled through 2027. The last time Nigeria had a state visit to Britain was 1989. 37 years of silence between two nations with a long, complicated, deeply intertwined history. And there was something else that made this evening unlike almost any other in living royal memory. President Tinubu is Muslim, and the visit fell during Ramadan. For the first time since 1928, a British monarch hosted a Muslim head of state during the holy month. A dedicated prayer space was created at Windsor Castle. The drinks menu included a bespoke non-alcoholic cocktail, a crimson bloom, made with the Nigerian drink zobo, English rose soda, hibiscus and ginger syrups. Small gestures, but deeply considered ones. The banquet itself took place in St. George's Hall, a single table stretching over 150 feet, seated around 150 guests, lit by more than 140 candles. And at that table, four royal women made choices about what to wear that evening that were anything but accidental. Queen Camilla, sapphires, serpents, and a scandalous beginning. Let's begin with Queen Camilla. She wore the Belgian sapphire tiara. And here is where the story gets interesting, because this tiara did not begin its life as a tiara at all. It began as a necklace, a Victorian sapphire and diamond necklace owned by Princess Louise of Belgium, daughter of King Leopold II. Louise's marriage was, by all accounts, deeply unhappy. She had a very public affair, was confined to an asylum, eventually divorced, and was forced to sell her jewels to cover her debts. That necklace, born from scandal and financial ruin, passed through Van Cleef and Arpels and came up for sale again in 1963. Queen Elizabeth II bought it. She had it mounted on a tiara frame specifically to complement a set her father had given her as a wedding gift, the King George VI Victorian Sapphire Suite, a necklace and earrings originally created around 1850. Noel Coward, after seeing Elizabeth wear those sapphires at a 1954 performance, wrote in his diary that they were the largest sapphires I have ever seen. That is the kind of impact these jewels made. Camilla wore the tiara and the suite together at the Nigerian banquet, exactly as Elizabeth II had done throughout her reign. And on her wrist, she wore at least one of the Queen Mother's Art Deco Cartier diamond bracelets. These are extraordinary pieces, geometric, platinum, some accented with rubies, emeralds or sapphires, given to the then Duchess of York by her husband, between 1923 and 1925 as Christmas and birthday presents. The Queen Mother was so devoted to them that she had Cartier create a special mount so 3 of the bracelets could be assembled into a bandeau-style tiara. They passed to Elizabeth II, and now they appear on Camilla's wrist. But the piece I find most quietly powerful in Camilla's ensemble that evening was her diamond serpent necklace, a piece she has worn for more than 2 decades, confirmed by Buckingham Palace as a family heirloom from her grandmother. Made by Van Cleef and Arpels, it is a coiling serpent set with diamonds and tiny ruby eyes. In European jewelry tradition, the serpent symbolizes eternal, unbroken love. It was the very motif Queen Victoria chose for her own engagement ring. For Camilla, whose relationship with Charles has been both long and complicated, wearing a serpent as a token of everlasting love at a banquet that was itself about transformation and new beginnings, that is not a coincidence. That is a statement. Catherine, Princess of Wales, Diana's tiara, and a diplomatic green. Now, Catherine. She wore Queen Mary's lover's knot tiara, and if you are a follower of royal jewelry, you already know this piece. But let me tell you its full story, because it is richer than most people realize. In 1913 and 1914, Queen Mary commissioned Garrard, the crown jeweler, to create a new tiara based on one owned by her aunt. She supplied diamonds and pearls from her own collection to build it. The original design had upright pearls along the top. Those were later removed, leaving the now famous swinging pearl drops beneath diamond arches. Queen Mary wore it. Queen Elizabeth II inherited it in 1953 and wore it regularly in the early decades of her reign. Then, in 1981, she loaned it to her new daughter-in-law, Diana, Princess of Wales. Diana wore it frequently, often paired with pearl drop earrings, and it appeared in some of her most iconic photographs. After Diana's death, the tiara returned to the vaults. It re-emerged in 2015 on Catherine, and she has since made it her most worn diadem. By the time of the Nigerian banquet, this tiara had passed through Queen Mary, Elizabeth II, Diana, and now Catherine. 4 women. Over a century of royal history, and Catherine paired it with the Queen Mother's sapphire and diamond fringe earrings. Dramatic Art Deco pieces, each centered on a large, faceted blue sapphire surrounded by a halo of diamonds, with diamond fringes that catch the light with every movement. For the daytime welcome ceremony earlier that day, Catherine had worn Princess Diana's Collingwood pearl drop earrings, a wedding gift to Lady Diana Spencer in 1981, paired with a coat dress by British-Nigerian designer Tolu Coker. And for the banquet itself, her emerald green gown by designer Andrew Gien was widely read as flag dressing. Green for Nigeria's fertile land, one of the 2 colours of the Nigerian flag. Every choice deliberate, every detail considered. Princess Anne, a tiara that survived everything. Princess Anne wore something that evening that I think deserves far more attention than it typically receives. She wore Princess Andrew's meander tiara, and this piece has a history that is almost impossible to believe. It belonged to Princess Alice of Battenberg, Prince Philip's mother, who became Princess Andrew of Greece and Denmark on her marriage in 1903. The tiara's design is a classical Greek key, the meander pattern, in diamonds, with a central laurel wreath element and honeysuckle motifs. The earliest photographs of Alice wearing it date from around 1914. This tiara survived the family's periods of exile. It survived Alice's confinement in a Swiss sanatorium. It was stored in a London bank vault during those years. In 1947, Alice gave it to her new daughter-in-law, Princess Elizabeth, as a wedding present. Elizabeth was never photographed wearing it. Instead, it eventually came to Princess Anne, who has worn it since the 1960s. And in 2011, Anne's daughter Zara Tyndall wore it as her bridal tiara. Princess Anne more commonly chooses a different tiara for state banquets. Her decision to wear the meander tiara at the Nigerian banquet, with its Greek key motifs, its direct connection to Philip's heritage, its survival through exile and hardship, felt like a quiet, deeply personal tribute. To her father, to Princess Alice, who sheltered Jewish refugees during the Second World War, to a family that has known both extraordinary privilege and extraordinary loss. She also wore a long evening coat that can be traced back to at least 1969, over 50 years old. That too tells you something about Princess Anne. Birgitta, Duchess of Gloucester, Guinness diamonds and a century of queens. And then there is Birgitta, Duchess of Gloucester, and her jewels that evening are a masterclass in the quiet, layered history that runs through the less publicized branches of the royal family. She wore the Ivea tiara. When Princess Mary of Teck married the future George V in 1893, Edward Cecil Guinness, the first Earl of Ivea of the Guinness brewing family, and his wife Adelaide presented her with this diamond tiara as a wedding gift. It is a Kokoshnik-style diadem of closely set diamond scrolls and foliage with a softly scalloped outline. Queen Mary wore it both as Duchess of York and later as Queen. Photographs show her wearing it as late as 1949. On Mary's death in 1953, the Ivea tiara was bequeathed not to Elizabeth II, but to her third son, Prince Henry, Duke of Gloucester. It passed to his wife, Princess Alice, then to their son, Prince Richard, and then to Birgitta. In 2008, Birgitta loaned it to her daughter, Lady Rose Windsor, for her wedding. Around her neck, Birgitta wore what has been identified as Queen Mary's pearl fringe necklace, a substantial piece combining pearls with diamond fringe elements, visible in photographs of Queen Mary from the 1920s and 1930s. And on her wrists, she wore bracelets repurposed from a long Art Deco diamond sautoir, a Garrard piece presented to Princess Alice as a wedding gift by the City of London in 1935, designed so that sections could be detached and worn separately. In 2024, Birgitta became the first married-in royal, not married to the monarch or heir, to be appointed a Royal Lady of the Order of the Garter. Decades of quiet, consistent public service recognized at last. 4 women, 1 banquet, and between them, a tiara born from a broken marriage, diamonds that survived exile and war, a serpent that speaks of enduring love, and Guinness money given to a future queen over a century ago. What strikes me most is not the monetary value of any of these pieces. It is the weight of the stories they carry. Every woman at that table was wearing someone else's history and choosing, very deliberately, which history to honor. So I want to ask you, which of these 4 stories moved you the most? Was it Diana's tiara on Catherine's head, Princess Alice's meander tiara and everything it survived, Camilla's serpent, or Birgitta's quiet century of Guinness diamonds? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to know.